Can you tell when somebody is BSing you or lying to you? Don't try to impress them. Just be yourself, and that's what they're going to go for.
Yeah.
Because if you go in there with emotional arguments or trying to impress them with your razzle dazzle, you're not going to get a date. There was no way they were going to let me out. They were going to see me as a monster. But I had to be honest with myself, like Sister says. It's yours. They actually, the commissioner says, because of what you shared, we feel that you've done enough time. It's time for you to go home.
And good evening, everybody. And thank you for joining us. Many of you who are volunteer chaplains and minister to people who are inside prisons, you know that they can and do go before the parole board. And in some of the cases we've learned about, individuals are denied parole. That definitely can be heartbreaking, especially when a volunteer sees such moral and spiritual progress in somebody. And in fact, we know of one man who corresponds with an angel team, and he's down in the South, and he's been denied 14 times. Now, in that state, an individual who's committed a crime like his must wait 2 years before he can reappear before the parole board again. So, you think about it, in his case, that's 28 years. So parole boards are trained to see convincing proof of one's progress, or they see someone who hasn't taken ownership of their crime or could be a risk to society. And this evening, we are talking to Sister Mary Shawn Hodges. She is the founder of the Partnership for Reentry Program, or PREP. PREP is one of our partners. They're located in Los Angeles. We also have Cruz here tonight, and he works with Sister at PREP. And Sister, can you just give a brief introduction of your friend who's there with us and tell us what she's doing at PREP?
So I'm just giving a very brief introduction because Jasenia will introduce herself.
Okay. All right, Jasenia, you're on.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jasenia. I'm a social work student in Providence, Rhode Island, at Providence College. I have interest in working with the formerly incarcerated and with the incarcerated population. And so my school provided me with a fellowship to be able to not only immerse myself with the Dominican community, but also with Sister Mary Shawn and the works of PREP. So I've been here for about 4 weeks, and I've had the opportunity to just work with PREP.
So
what's it like working with Sister?
Oh, don't ask her that. Don't ask her that. It's good. So we've been to 5 prisons in, let's see, in about 25 days. And our own sisters had a Jubilee of our sisters, which is a grand celebration and of Dominican life. And so she came and was part of that and was in our choir. And we're trying to just give as much experience in this work and in Dominican as we can. So it's been a wonderful time having her with us. And she does live with us. I live at Clinton Ridge Sacred Heart, which is a residential school for high school girls with day students. And it was a hotel. And so we have a lot of rooms. So she actually lives with us in our community. It's wonderful.
Thank you. Thanks for introducing yourself too. So just so everybody knows that among other things, PREP helps inmates prepare for their parole board hearings. And Sister Mary here has done this work for many, many years and is, by, I would say, any standard, an expert in this area. So we're very, very blessed to have you here tonight. Cruz has also appeared before the parole board here in California. So Al really knows the process from a lived experience side of it. So I just want to say thanks for the 3 of you for taking the time here to be with us tonight. And people can just hold questions until the end, and then they'll be asking you deep and profound questions, believe me. So well, there's a lot to learn, and I think that it would be helpful to start with some of the really most basic things So I'm just going to ask you some basic questions. So Sister and Al, either of you can answer this, but what is a parole board and what is their primary purpose?
Well, the parole board is a primary purpose is public safety. They have to find a balance between the prisoner's rehabilitation and, like I said, public safety. And they have to unanimously find that the person appearing before them no longer represents a danger to society. And I myself went 11 times before I got found suitable. They basically want to know, do you understand how you became the person who thought it was okay to live the way you did and to do the things you did?
Yeah.
Because if you understand that, then you can address those issues and they can see the change in you.
Yeah, right. But who are the people that make up a typical parole board? How do they get chosen, and how diverse you think are their backgrounds?
Well, the Board of Prison Terms of California is made up, I think, with 13 commissioners who are appointed by the governor, and then a bunch of deputy commissioners, which go through the civil service hiring process. And the title of the commissioners, I believe, is administrative judges. A lot of them have law enforcement backgrounds, legal backgrounds, legal training. Some of the deputies come from psychological training, law enforcement, corrections, and that sort of thing.
So it's a kind of a wide swath of different people with different backgrounds, and I'm assuming psychologists would be involved in that as well. So yeah, good. So these are just the basic, simple questions until I get to the deeper questions. But who else besides the inmate will be at the parole board hearing? Like, would there be victims? Are there prosecutors, defense attorneys? Who else would be there at that meeting?
Victims and victims' relatives can appear if they ask prior permission. There'll be a representative of the county of commitment. There'll be a CO of security, and that's about it. Your attorney, your appointed attorney, and then the person that's having the hearing.
Okay. So, okay, this to you, Al. And when you entered I'm just trying to get like a visual picture here, but so when you entered the parole board hearing room, how's the room set up? Like, give us kind of a visual picture.
Well, if it's a in-person hearing, there's usually a long table, 2 tables wide. The commissioner, deputy commissioner are on one side, you and your attorney on the other side, the guard standing somewhere in the background. The district attorney and any attendees, victims or their relatives, will be off to the side.
Okay.
And there's no furnishings except for the table, computer screen, and the microphones. Nowadays, they have a lot of video hearings.
Yeah.
So they're kind of like Zoom meetings, but it's a parole hearing. And I've never been to one of those, so I can't speak on that.
Okay. Sister, what were you going to say?
Just what distinction Al just said. In former times, all these hearings were in person. I've been to a couple of them just to see how they work. But now everything is by Zoom. There is no in-person meeting, and that makes it a little bit more difficult to get into the relationship part of it.
Why do you think that's more difficult? I can understand, I think, intellectually why, but what do you think?
Well, I'm going to just use this Zoom. This Zoom is very nice. We are seeing each of you, but because it's all on screen,
Yeah.
as much as we're going to relate to each other, it's not as strong of a personal relationship as if we were in the same room. For example, when we go to Colorado and all of us will be together, it'll be much more relative. So that makes it easier.
Right. Yeah, understandable. So what does the parole board know about an inmate prior to the hearing? And where does the parole board get their information?
Well, the parole board is the commissioner and deputy commissioner, and probably the DA and your attorney are provided what they call a board packet, and it's basically everything out of your prison central file along with maybe a probation report, investigator's notes, and your prison documentation, write-ups, chronos, and what have not. Any letters of support that were sent on your behalf, any letters sent by victims to their families. So it's both opposition and support letters.
Does anybody in the prison give any kind of information, like guards, for example?
You can request, if you have a good rapport with staff, they can, if they're willing, and you request it, provide laudatory chronos, what they call CDCR 128Bs.
Okay. So if an inmate is granted parole, does the parole board then set the release conditions for the parole officers, who will then give that information to the inmate when they come out? Is that
Well, they look at what's involved in the crime. If you were high on drugs or alcohol, if it was gang related, if depending on the victim, did he survive or she survive, then those are the special conditions of the parole. No alcohol or drug use, no visiting nightclubs, anywhere where alcohol is the primary source of income for consumption, no contact with the victim, avoid gang activities or gang members. So it all depends on what's involved in your commitment offense.
yeah. But the parole board will know all of that in order to give that to the parole officers. Okay.
Parole board meeting lasts for anywhere from an hour to 2 hours. It used to last for 3 or 4. Now that they're on the Zoom, the TV, it lasts for maybe for 1 hour to 2 hours. And then they take a small break, and the commissioner and deputy commissioner talk and make the decision, return to the room and tell the person, yes, we give you a date. No, we give you a 3-year denial, a 5-year denial, right then and there. And that's, if a person gets a date, there's a 5-month review period. 4 months of the review period is to look over all the information of the person in prison, to make sure that the housing they say they're going to do, to check out family, to check out their information. And then the last month, that paperwork goes to the governor and a review team. And that's a final report. And then the governor and review team say, yes, we confirm your date, you will get out, or no, we do not confirm your date. And they usually give like a 3-year denial, Al.
Yeah, most common is 3, but under Marcy's law, they can go 3, 5, 7, 10, and 15.
Oh my gosh. So you're saying you could actually, in some cases, wait 15 years from one hearing to the next hearing?
Technically, yeah, that could happen. They do have provisions in place to where the board, when they deny you, they usually state specific reasons why you're denied. And if you address those reasons and then petition for an advancement and provide the proof of how you address them, they may, if they choose to, advance your parole date.
Got it.
But only when you have continued to do, for example, it's very rare anymore to get a 7, a 10, or a 15-year denial. Very rare. It usually is a 3 or a 5. And let's just say you get a 5-year denial. You must do 36 months of that. A 5-year denial, well, is 60 months, 5 times 12, 60. So then you have to serve 30 months of it. And then you can ask to go back. And you have to give proof in those 30 months that you address the concerns that the board brought up to you.
Yeah. Since these are such long distances between parole hearings, I'm just wondering how long does it take a parole board to convene and think through what they've just heard in the hearing before they give you either a denial or an approval? Is there any kind of is it just different in every case, I'm sure?
Yeah, they deliberate according to the perception that each each person took. In my case, they broke for deliberation. The deputy commissioner went to the bathroom, then the DA went to the bathroom, and they called me right back in. So maybe 5 minutes.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and others they'll take like an hour, hour and a half. So
Wow.
just depends the impression they got of you that they gotta talk about what they think, what they believe.
Got it.
So there's
So,
no
what you go ahead, sorry.
no set time.
No set time. So you remember the movie The Shawshank Redemption?
Yeah.
He was approved like right off the bat, like, within a few seconds.
Well,
That's not normal.
there's a lot of people. No, not for an approval, but there's a lot of people who believe that the decision is already made before you go in,
Yes.
and you have to
It's a bad idea to go in with a preconceived notion that they are saying yes or no. That's a bad idea.
Yeah, but they do have the paperwork filled out for either way.
Wow. So, how does the inmate get invited to the parole board hearing, or do they need to apply? What's the process for this?
That depends on your sentence. A 15 to life sentence, you go at 9 years or a year before you're minimum eligible. So every sentence has a minimum eligible parole date, and you go to board a year before that date. And then thereafter, it's depending on the denials that they give you.
So, is this regardless of behavior changes? So they don't care. You're saying you may have just had an absolutely unbelievable transformation of character that everybody understands and agrees and can see, and you're still saying that what the law says is that it starts at a certain time. You can't really go before the parole board before a certain amount of time.
No, but you can, for example, submit a petition for commutation to the governor's office. And in that petition, you include all your rehabilitative efforts of the change, support letters, and what have not. And then the governor can choose to commute your sentence, meaning convert it to a lesser sentence.
So that's the governor makes that decision, not the parole board.
Not the parole board.
Got it. So that's obviously goes over the parole board's head, so to speak.
I believe the parole board reviews the file and everything, and then they make a recommendations to the governor.
Got it. Got it. Al, I just got a few questions for you since you've really gone through this process, but and you said it took 11 times before you were granted parole. Why do you think it was 11?
See, I was a first termer, so I didn't know anything about the board. And when I asked other lifers, you get all the negative. They're antagonistic, that they try to trip you up. So I had this very negative image of the board. And so I would go in there very adversarial, like an attorney arguing my point rather than showing them my change. I would argue the law, and that played into my denial that I didn't murder him. I took his life. I stole his life, but the whole idea of murdering somebody was just abhorrent to me. I didn't want to accept it. Yes. And that's, I believe, I was so confrontational. I believe that's why I kept getting denied.
Well, but then, what I just have to. What were you being told? Let's say the first time before you went before the parole board. What were other inmates saying you could expect?
Like I just said, that they were very adversarial, to be on guard because this one would ask you something, and then a few minutes later, the other commissioner would ask the same thing, but worded differently, trying to trip you up intentionally, trying to push your button. So I did go in there guarded and not relaxed at all, not able. I didn't feel I could be myself because I was so much on guard.
And you're saying you got that mostly those attitudes came to you because of other inmates who had gone before the parole board, how they had experienced the parole board.
True, but you have to understand that the political atmosphere at that time during Wilson and Davis, nobody was getting out. And I believe it was Davis that coined the phrase, no one in for murder is getting out unless it's in a pine box.
Oh, wow.
So the general feeling of the people was, it doesn't matter what you do or what you accomplish, they're not letting us out.
Really?
Yeah. So the basic person during the time that I was in was, excuse me, the basic reason for even going to board was just to establish the record so that you could proceed into court. But we weren't expecting anything from the board.
Got it. Yeah, we've seen people that have gone before the board that whose attitude has just been so completely changed. But my question then is how does the parole board know the difference between words that are meant to convince them of of an inmate's reform and when an inmate is not being sincere or truthful? What do you are they trained to look at and hear certain words or key off of certain behavior?
And can you tell when somebody is BSing you or lying to you? You personally?
Can I tell what? When
If
somebody's lying?
BSing or trying to play you?
Pretty much.
Now magnify that by the training that these people on the board have, all their life experience in law enforcement, corrections, the legal field, and they see the body language, and
Yeah.
they can tell. One of the things that I caught when I got my hearing is after I gave the answer that I did, that was, we can tell that you've internalized what you've been studying. A lot of people just go in there, they memorize vocabulary, memorize phrases, and and they go in there and that's what they present to the board. And that's why at prep we tell them, look, go in there, don't try to use big words. In your own words, explain what you've learned. Don't try to impress them, just be yourself. And that's what they're going to go for.
Yeah.
Because if you go in there with emotional arguments or trying to impress them with your razzle dazzle, you're not going to get a date.
So then the way that you're actually saying that people need to prepare themselves for really tough questions is to do what again?
Well, what we tell people is share your story with others, but be honest with yourself and them. Because of all the shame involved in what we do, we isolate ourselves psychologically and emotionally from others. And until we overcome that and are able to share comfortably the things we've done and why we did them with others, then the power that isolation has will disappear. And if you can share it with them, you can share it with the board and they can see your sincerity.
Another thing we say is speak truth to what you know is true and don't try to answer the board the way they want to hear it. We hear that a lot at the beginning is the board wants me to say, the board wants to hear. No, speak who I am and not anything. It's my hearing, it's not the board's hearing.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Al, you went through the board hearing 11 times, but you obviously, the 12th time it was something different, right?
Yeah.
So how honest were you with the parole board? Were there things you thought that you needed to hide from them that maybe, in order to be granted parole, you just were getting really good at maybe how you're hiding it? Or how did that go? Because obviously you're here. What happened?
Initially, there was a lot of like, I can't be honest with them because it makes me look worse. And the last attorney I had asked me, why didn't you help the victim after you stabbed him? And I go, well, it was winter time. He was wearing a Pendleton. When I stabbed him, his arm went like this. So I thought he was hitting the shoulder, and my BS story. And he goes, no. And I go, what do you mean no? And he goes, you didn't help him because you didn't care about him. And those words echoed in my mind even after my meeting, and I'm tossing them around, and I found he's right. I didn't care about him. And so I started looking at that. And through that lens, I determined that because of all the negativity, all the shame, the self-condemnation, because of everything negative in me that I hated about me.
Yeah.
I suppressed my feelings. I taught myself not to care. But a byproduct was I stopped caring about anybody else. So when the board asked me that question, I kind of like, oh man, I was hoping you wouldn't ask me that, because I knew if I told them that, there was no way they were going to let me out. They were going to see me as a monster. But I had to be honest with myself, like Sister says. It's your story, you got to share. So I told them that exact same thing, and then to my surprise, when I came back in, they found me suitable.
What did they say?
They actually, the commissioner says, because of what you shared, we feel that you've done enough time. It's time for you to go home. You've internalized,
Mm.
it was such a minute that all the blood rushed to my head that can't remember everything they said, but I do remember little clips where they said, they asked questions like, do you try to be in control of all the meetings your groups you're in? And I go, no, I'll step forward, but control, no, because they know the addictive behavior, the internal. You're so out of control internally that you try to control externally. And this is what I say, there's some pretty sharp people on the board.
Yeah. I'm sure they've seen everything, heard everything. I was just wondering too that, and Sister, you said now that there's a lot of video that's used, but I'm just wondering that how much of the human contact that they look at, like a police officer or detective is trained, to look at eyes, to look at hands, to look at bodies, and how you're standing, and all those little tiny things are not tiny and little to a detective. They're actually really big clues.
Yeah.
How much do you think a parole board is savvy to that? I think I'm answering my own question, but
A parole board now is when Al was going to those board hearings, and that was what, 15, 20 years ago. What Al said a while ago is the attitude was a person who goes to prison deserves to die in prison. And so the parole board members were of that attitude. Some of them had been the police officers in prisons, and they didn't want anybody out. Gray Davis didn't let anybody out. But now the parole board persons do want you out. And so they listen with different ears. And so that is why I have to, if I'm before the parole board, speak my truth, and not what I want them to hear, but what I want me to say, because I've changed.
yeah,
So it is a different time.
yeah,
I think it's also that we as inmates look at them as they and us. And so that
yeah,
kind of like, it's a barrier.
yeah.
Last time I didn't go in with that way. And I actually found a rapport with the deputy commissioner, because he was in the reading for audiobooks. I was in the transcribing Braille, and we connected, and we got on a side conversation where the deputy had, or the commissioner had to say, hey, can we get back to the hearing? So I wasn't looking at them antagonistically anymore. They were just people doing their job.
Yeah. Yeah. That's actually a wonderful shift in you, isn't it?
I didn't notice it till right now.
Yeah. What was going on, Al? I've got to find out here. What was going on in your mind when you first learned that you were granted parole? Was it relief? Was it happiness? Was it concern? What was going through your mind?
Disbelief.
Disbelief.
We came back in. They started with, well, we're going to discuss the reasons for unsuitability. So I go, yeah, I saw that coming. And she's reading the different factors of unsuitability. And then in the background, I heard her say, and now we're going to discuss the factors that led us to find you suitable today. And I'm like, what? And I look at her, and she's smiling. I look at my attorney. I look at everybody in the room, and my head's feeling hot. And I go, it was just disbelief.
Wow.
And even when I got back on the yard, guys would ask me, how you feeling? I go, I'd seen so many guys get dates only to have it pulled. that I told them it's just another day. When I'm on the outside of the fence, I'll look back and I'll yell at you guys. And that's what I did.
Hmm. What was your mindset and daily practices, I should say, after you learned that you had been granted parole? What what were your thoughts and behaviors, or how were your thoughts and behaviors different after you learned that you were going to be released?
They weren't. They stayed the same because, like I just said, I'd seen so many people get dates just to have the date taken away. So I didn't allow myself to get that hopes up, and I didn't until the day that I was released.
Oh. So this one is to you, sister, and it's kind of like the final question here, and we can let everybody else kind of jump into this. But can you tell us about PREP's correspondence course for helping inmates to prepare for their parole board hearing? What topics do you cover?
One of them, we have two major topics on this, and one is, why did I come to prison? What happened to me and my birth family up until the time I went to prison that brought me to prison? We call it road to crime.
Yeah.
And then our second major topic is road to transformation. And I'm going to go back to that road to crime. If I was abandoned as a child, it puts a wound of abandonment into my belly. I think that's graphic enough. If I was physically, sexually abused, there's a wound in my belly.
Mm.
If my parents were addicts, I was ignored. I wasn't treated parently by them. There's a wound in my belly. And so that's the road to crime. And we asked them to look at the road to crime. And then Father Greg Boyle calls it a change from, I'm going to use a prison cell to a hallway where I begin to change my life. And once I enter the hallway to change my life, it's still a long road to healing and transformation. What we have done in order to help this is to address in our courses the woundedness in the belly. So anger is a great wound. Domestic violence is a great wound. Criminal thinking, the way I view things, is a great wound. And so we have a lot of courses that are addressing these wounds, and what the person inside has to see, okay, what is my wound? Why did I get here that I have to address? And then the parole board is very supportive of us. So when a person gets a denial, very often the parole board will say, take the PREP domestic violence course, take the PREP trauma course. And when we see that there is a need and there's no course, we work with several of the persons inside to write a course because they have the experience. And so we do continue to write courses to heal the woundedness inside. And that is the transformation, and that is what I speak of. I can't stay stuck on, I was abused. I need to know that now I am loved and I am safe now. I won't hurt anybody again.
What
So that's
kind
our
of
courses
feedback are you getting?
Good feedback, very positive feedback.
Has the parole board seen your course?
Yes, they're very, very aware of them. Yes.
Hopefully they'll see our course ready for a reentry certification course.
Yes.
They'll go take sister's course and then take Embrace Fully's course.
And take all the courses. Your course is extremely important and valuable, and yours is going on to Edobo, the tablets. Not too many of our courses are on there.
Yeah. It seems to me like the heart of the work there is the initial part of the work, though, is really looking into the heart. It's self-examination work is so critical. It's what we mostly run away from, not wanting to see what's actually there.
We get two groups of people, and one group of person says, I'm going to do 10 of the courses because I just want the credit for 10, and it doesn't really absorb into the person. And another person will say, well, I'm going to do 2 courses, and I'm going to do everything I can to learn the core of what this course is saying. It's more important to know what my wounds are and to heal the wounds than to gang up on courses.
Yeah. Thank you both. Thank you, all three of you. So, Gabriel, your time to take over and get people to ask questions if you want to. Anything that we missed? There's anything you want to know more about?
I wanted to just start by saying thank you, Alfredo, for sharing your story again tonight. And I have to say, the footage that we captured with you sharing your story for the course, it's so good. It's so good. And I am just truly grateful for your sharing of that.
That's what we're here for, paying it forward.
Yeah. So let's go to Marshall. And Marshall, you're muted. And then we'll go to Eleanor and then to Troy.
Thank you so much for your sharing. It was really opened my eyes. I'm working, and Kay and I are working with 11 returning citizens now. And we found in some cases they got out earlier than they thought, which creates a big problem for angel teams being prepared. And I just wondered if that's common, or do they give a specific date and they know they're going to get out at a certain time? Is that more normal, or what's the case?
Well, here in California, like Sister was saying, after you're found suitable, there's 150 days that they have to pull it. 120 of those are for the board, their decision review unit. And then if you're in for murder, the last 30 days of the governor's. At any time, the governor can say, I'm not going to take any action in this matter. And you can get out before the 150 days. So it's really up to your counselors and CDC staff on how they're going to stay on the job there.
It is not common, however, to get out very much before the 150 days, huh, Al?
Not much before the 120, because a lot of times, like if you're not in for murder, the governor cannot pull your date, but he can refer you to en banc. So before the 120 days, it's very rare to get out before then, but you can get out before the 150.
All right. Eleanor, why don't we go to you?
Yes, thank you, all of you, so much. This was so helpful. I do have several questions. First of all, I volunteer in Texas, so I don't know if the system or the procedure is similar or the same or totally different than it is in California. So it's hard to know, but I do know that so many of our men who feel that they're ready for parole and have a positive hearing and then are denied. And the reason is the nature of the crime. And it seems that the parole board is just kind of fixated on the violence of the crime or the nature of the crime and haven't paid any attention to the fact that they've had a clean record in prison, that they've changed and I don't know. Obviously, I haven't been to the parole hearings, and I don't know. And I'm partial to the men and their rehabilitation, but sometimes I just feel like it's a foregone conclusion. And I also wonder how in the world can they read body language on Zoom? That takes the humanity out of it, and that it doesn't seem like that's helpful. So, if you could maybe address some of those things.
Al, you're muted.
Yeah.
A lot of times when we get denied, we respond on an emotional level, and we miss a lot of the things that they really considered. So the path of least resistance is to blame them, saying, well, the nature of the crime. That's why it's important, and Sister Mary stresses to the guys that read, every time you get denied, read your transcripts. What did they ask you? How did you respond? And concentrate on that. Because we do tend to, from our dysfunctional backgrounds, shift blame a lot, even if it's subconsciously, you know,
Right.
because especially after we put so much effort into something.
So you get a copy of the transcript of the hearing?
Yes, your attorney gets one, and you get a copy of the transcript.
Okay. Thank you.
And
Mhm.
addressing the violence, the severe violence of a crime is very important
Mm-hmm.
for a person to talk about that, even if they're not asked about it. You know, some of these are brutal.
Yes.
You know, a person in prison may not ever do it again, but I think the person should address it. I know I was extremely violent in killing Tom Hanks. And I have to say, I will never be in a position again to have that violence. I have come to love myself, honor myself, respect myself. It has to be addressed.
Mm-hmm.
The violent crimes are a big stumbling block.
Tony, our director, expresses it really clearly where he says that the board just wants the crime to make sense, because so much of violence is just senseless. There's no real reason for it. So if you can look at what you did and explain to the board why you did that, even if it sounds cold and callous to you, but the board says, okay, that makes sense.
Okay. Interesting. Thank you. Thank you. Very helpful.
Go to Troy.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you, Al, for sharing. And Sister Mary Sean, you know, my heart always go out to you. I'm a recipient of your programs. And also when you go in there, did the board prep, all that work helped me when I went in there to face it and to ultimately gain my freedom. So, you know, my heart goes out to her. She goes up in there. She's a real one. She pulls us in those chapels and she lets us run it, and she runs it. And it's just a life-changing experience if you're trying to gain insight, period. You know what I mean? And until just really get that deep insight and you stop looking at things from your perspective and start looking at it from the victim's perspective in the way society and community sees that. And you got to internalize it. And like Sister Mary Sean, you have to name it. You have to talk about it. You got to speak on it. Ain't no skirting going around it, trying to dodge it. No, you got to deal with it head on and be able to thoroughly explain it. And so I just wanted to take a second to say thank you. I really appreciate the sharing. You know, like you said, the honesty is going to get you there. It's going to get you that. It's going to get you that date. And I always look forward to being on the panels with you, Sister Mary Sean. You got my number. You call Troy anytime. I'm there, no problem. And all the supporters, I appreciate you. Thank you.
Right.
I'll also say thank you, Troy, for your contributions to the Ready for Reentry course. Rewatching the videos and the clips, I mean, it's so truly powerful. Let's go to CS Church.
That's actually me, Cindy.
Cindy.
Some of the women that I work with don't come from real rough backgrounds. You know, they're individuals that had every benefit. One was a doctor, another one, you know, a well-educated working woman. And it seems like sometimes when individuals like that go before the board wants, kind of the attitude is, you had every advantage you messed up. You don't have this story of background abuse and everything, why are you here? We have no sympathy. I mean, I don't mean that they're supposed to have sympathy. They can't see the transformation because they didn't come from a place where maybe they were terribly wounded. And so, sometimes they feel like all these people are getting out because they have this story, but they haven't necessarily done all the work and they are certainly they did their crime and they have to look at that. But do you have anything to share about that kind of a situation?
There's two scenarios that I personally would look at, is that we tend to idealize our childhoods, our family life, even when there's been bad things that happen in them. So we don't remember a lot of the trauma. Another one, and what is trauma other than an event that surpasses your ability to deal with it psychologically or emotionally? So if you've had a great upbringing, kind of a sheltered lifestyle, and you get caught up in circumstances beyond your control, that you're not emotionally or psychologically equipped to deal with, and you do something that's just totally way out of character for you, it's hard for you to accept and it's hard for you to deal with. I mean, that's the nature of trauma, and that's just something they have to look into. So it's, I think there's a proverb that says, in the blink of an eye, a tragedy can happen to any one of us.
Mm-hmm.
A person came up to me. We just had an event, and we're having postcards signed to Governor Newsom to commute the sentences of those on death row, which means they can't be executed. And a person came up to me after I had said that and said, if he murdered a person, he should be murdered. And it's against church teaching. We believe in the whole cycle of life from birth to natural death and not to kill. So part of it is my upbringing, what was I brought up? And another is, what is my belief of what, the gospel, the church says? And that takes a while to help see. Again, when we started this work, and that's over 20 years ago, our ministry was called Detention Ministry, and it was the murderer deserves to be killed, the victim deserves to be healed, and the community, can be retributive. Restorative justice says the prison system is to heal the offender, heal the victim, heal the community. So it's a whole different outlook of the two ways of looking at it. Do I deserve to be punished, or am I in here to be healed? And it's a matter of patience, working with people to gently say, all of us are sinners. All of us need to be healed.
It's true. Hurt people hurt people.
Uh-huh.
I could see where victims are hurting and they want to hurt the people that hurt them.
And also heal people, heal people.
Uh-huh.
Exactly. That's a good one.
Heal people, heal people. Can't forget that one.
It's difficult for a victim to stay the victim. A victim has to come to healing too. Again, an experience I had was in a church where we had an art show, and I was speaking of, healing, and the lady came up to me, and her mother had been probably murdered 30 years ago, and she was so angry about it. And I thought, oh, how horrible for her to live for 30 years in the anger of her mother, and how dangerous and sad for her body to live in that pain for those 30 years, grace to come to healing. In all my life, when I've been offended, I need to look at it to heal myself and forgive another person. But that's my belief. So then that's easier. If my belief is you wronged me, I'm going to get you. Or that's difficult to live in that.
Do we have any other questions for Sister Mary, for Alfredo, or Yesenia?
I would like to comment on Troy's comment about heals people, heal people. I think 2 years ago, or more or less, my nephew was murdered in Bakersfield. And my brother, his dad, and his wife asked me to speak to the judge at his sentencing. And I found it very difficult to say anything harmful or hurtful, just to remind the judge that there had to be some kind of not punishment, but an accounting for him to fix himself. And then that's the worst thing about prison is they toss you in with no real mechanism on how to help you. It's like toss you in and you got to help yourself. And so I want to thank Troy for that beautiful observation that healed people heal people.
Thank you.
And we believe strongly in accountability. If I have done something, I have to be accountable. You can't let me off on it. I am accountable for my actions. So accountability is a strong word.
Yeah.
Well, I will say that we are, with this Ready for Reentry certification course, bringing the voices of people who have been through this exact process to people on the inside. And that thing you just said, Alfredo, of there aren't that many resources necessarily available. We are really hopeful that besides what PrEP already has been offering for now decades, that this is going to be a really interesting new piece of content that people can go through, take this course, do these exercises, and really find perhaps a spark of transformation or an encouragement on that path that they might already be on. And so, David, did you have anything else for our guests tonight?
I just want to thank you for sharing and sharing so honestly. And this is such an important topic, and it's one that we've not really covered before. And I just think it's so helpful to just sort of shine a light on the process, because we do have a lot of people that ask, well, how do I help somebody get ready for a parole hearing? And what we're now saying is that take Sister's course, and because they've been there, they understand the landscape. And so I would recommend to anybody who's a volunteer chaplain here that's got somebody that's going to go before a parole board, that Sister's course is going to be, I think, invaluable to them. It's a heart-searching course. You can't get away from yourself. It's just you got to look in. And so I would just thank you for putting that course together. Sorry that Tony's not here. Tell him we still love him anyway.
Get him to. We want to say how valuable your part is. Our part is inside, your part is outside. And unless they have the angel teams to accompany them the outside, you can't do that alone. You can't walk out into a vastly different world than when you went in and make it. It has to have angel teams to accompany them. So it's your part of it is as significant as ours. They go together. So it's wonderful to partner with you.
So Corrine asks in the chat, how can inmates get to Sister Mary's course?
Hmm.
Well, I think we've given you the information, and maybe if we give it to you again, and what that would mean is Al, you can email to David and to Gabriel the list of all our courses,
Sure.
and you can get it out to the Angel teams.
And there's also our website.
Yep, I'm gonna put a couple links in the chat right now. I'm gonna put a link to PREP's course list.
Because we do have all your courses.
So, and to our Embrace Fully donation page. Thank you to everybody who has donated in the past and can make a donation in the future. And so if you're interested in the PREP course list, you'll see the link for that right in the chat here in just 1 second. And I wanted to say thank you again to everybody for being here tonight, and offer, if anybody has 5 minutes that they would like to see a bonus clip from the course tonight. I have one queued up, but I do see Linda, your hand is up.
I just had a question for you, Sister Mary. Did you say that you are located in Flintridge?
Yeah, that's where I live.
Okay.
Sacred Heart La Cañada.
That's where I grew up. So I thought I heard that. I wanted to make sure.
Whoa, awesome. It's a beautiful area.
Yeah, very pretty. That's it.
So I'll say no need to stick around if you don't want to see this video, but if you are interested, I would love to share it with you. Does that sound okay, David?
Good. Good way to go out.
All right. And here we go. So this is Carlos Vasquez.
So in prison, when I first went in, my goal was to become a prison shot caller and to be respected in that world. And it was specifically driven by all of the pain that I was experiencing within. It was how I was able to deal with it and to cope with it was through doing that criminality that I was doing, because I wasn't using drugs in prison. I wasn't doing any of that because in my world in prison, drugs were looked at as negative if you did drugs. So the only way I could release these feelings of pain and the trauma was through more violent acts. So that was my identity. And a part of that was getting other people and manipulating other people to do things. And young guys come on the prison yard and teaching them things that were negative instead of positive. And so it's very common in prison for people to be like that because this is your reality. So when I was taken away from that and placed into solitary confinement, and I had to confront everything, like all the things that I was running and masking on the prison yard, I had to confront that by myself. The idea of that and the feeling experience of that, it would force me to have to address myself and work on myself, because I was at rock bottom and there was only one place for me to go, and that was up. I couldn't get any lower than that. And so for me, it took for me to get there, to get to that state, that rock bottom, to me to identify all of the stuff that I was going through and experience to then grow from. And that was through reading and analyzing my life and reflecting on where I had come from, and then figuring out why I was the way I was. All that happened in solitary. And through that process, through the help of the chaplain who brought me the Bible that I first started to read, and then the correctional guard that brought me the books, through these mentors, they didn't even come in as mentors, but that's what they did. They became my mentors. They provided me more mentorship that came through the books that I was reading. And by me challenging my old belief systems, because I knew it led me nowhere good, it led me to solitary confinement and all the other things that I had experienced, which wasn't good. It didn't have a good feeling attached to it. Once I was able to challenge that through what I was learning, I started to have realizations and breakthroughs and what people call aha moments, where it was like, well, that's why I have nightmares every night, because I witnessed my best friend kill himself and I developed PTSD. So no wonder I have feelings of guilt and shame, because that's what I read in this book. And this person had the same experience. So it made sense. And then I started to empathize with my younger self, my past self, because I realized that, man, I was going through life and I wasn't healed. I was bringing with a lot of pain, like so many in prison do. And at that point, I realized that I was going to take responsibility for my life. I was going to take accountability, and I was going to start doing things different and start to apply the law of replacement, which is replacing old negative behaviors with good ones. And so instead of consuming negative things or hearing negative things on the yard, I consumed positive things and read positive books and went and found people on the yard that had a positive perspective on life. So and that takes an intention, that takes actual steps that you have to make in your life to start shifting out of that negative way of thinking into a positive one. It just doesn't happen. It just doesn't appear overnight, especially in prison where it's so much negativity in that world. It just doesn't appear. So you have to actually seek that. And maybe your only option is a book, but that's a start. That's a powerful start. Maybe after that, you have an option to find somebody else on the yard that you can connect with too. And when you do that, that's taking responsibility because you're taking action toward doing something different. Instead of going to the prison yard and walking laps with that guy talking about how you're going to get your next hit of weed, maybe you should go to the law library and start to study and figure out the laws and how you can get out of there. Once you do that, you've taken responsibility and you're on the right path. And if you do that at scale, you'll truly transform and get to a point where you become a new identity.
I don't know. Is that all right?
Awesome. Just awesome. Thank you.
Thank you again, everybody.
It's really wonderful.
Yeah, and thank you especially to our I'll say our key donors who have helped us to get to this point with the Ready for Reentry certification course. Truly, we would not be here without you. So thank you everybody for the support. And I can't wait to share the full course with everybody as soon as it is fully done and posted and available. So with that, thank you everybody, and we'll see you. See you next time.
Thank you, sister. Thank you, Al.
Thank
We
you
do
all.
have
Thank you all.
a angel team meeting in 2 weeks. Next Thursday. No, it's not this next Thursday. It's the Thursday after that. It'll be at 6:00 p.m. Pacific, and you should receive a email for that in your email if you are subscribed to our list. So again, that's embracedfully.org/subscribe. So thanks again, everybody.
Thank you,
See you
Gabriel.
next.
Thank you.